We're going to get into this real quick. Let me see. How's that going to work? Yeah. All right. So we're going to keep this thing going. We're about to get started right now. That's right, Smash. Gotta stay sucker free, bro. That's how we do it, brother. Stay sucker free. Sucker ducking. Yep. Absolutely. So, we're going to get into a couple things here. We're going to focus on two aspects of things. We're going to talk about policies and everything that we're doing in regards to how to approach, public officials and what their duties are. We're going to reference some texts I got, and we're going to go to the definitions. We're going to use Black Law's 9th edition today. Other than that, we're also just going to work on, we're just going to deal with our basic examples like we always use. So we keep it to something people are familiar with. And that's mortgages. Use those for an examples. We're going to talk about contracts, offers, acceptances. That's what we're going to do there as well. We're also going to talk about deposits again, but we're going to talk about it from a different angle. We're also going to talk about takings, the takings clause, the Constitution, common law, by the definition, so you can see exactly what it's really about. We're also going to get into the social media stream. We're going to take a ride down the avenue of social media just to get some information out, and waste some time a little bit, so that way we give people plenty of time to get the alerts. Hit the like button. I'll be forgetting this is a little bit different. Hold on. Let's start over.
So you represent all the people in the 139th district, but you also represent something very special in this store, and it's why our tribal nations are represented in this room. And how you are making history.
And to stand here on this stage in this moment with the people who are elected to the office.
So you represent all the people in the 139th district, but you also...
Yeah, good looking out, man. Appreciate it.
Quand je vous parle des fondateurs des Amériques mélanodermes, je parle de ça en fait. Regardez.
This video is for entertainment purposes only.
The whole world came and attacked America, and people gonna be like, that didn't happen. Yes, it did.
Because that's how you have your colonies now. That's how like Britain owned colonies in the Caribbean and in Canada, and how you got French owning colonies and all these fucking colonies. Like, how can you be on one landmass but you own that landmass?
Spain didn't know what we did. How the fuck did Spain own all of
Texas, California,
does not
Mexico.
Make sense. The whole world came and fought against us, y'all. Come on, y'all. And they told us in history, and we looked over it because we're looking at it from the perspective of being African American, but we're not African American. We were already here, so they came and fought us, right? Okay, so that's important. So what happened with the Louisiana Purchase? And I keep talking about the Louisiana, I keep talking about the Haitians. What happened with the Louisiana Purchase, y'all? And what do Haiti got to do with this?
That's funny. See, the young folks, when they talk, they be like, "Hey, what they do about us? What they do about us?" That'd be funny. They be turned all the way up. These young people be turned up.
Who?
Christopher Columbus. They said when he got to the Americas, he ended up in the Bahamas, and then he went from the Bahamas to Haiti, Cuba, at the time.
And where did he land?
He did not land on mainland.
And where did he land? But they said he landed where? He discovered who?
He discovered
The where? The Americas, right? The Americas. So that would mean what islands consist of being the Americas? Haiti, Bahamas.
Oh, they twins. Yeah, you can tell they twins.
Puerto Rico, all them.
Puerto Rico, St. Martin,
All of that. Come on, y'all. The Americans, we are Caribbean. But anyways, so this is important, y'all. Okay, so remember, y'all, the 13 colonies was trying to expand west. How did they expand west? How did they gain majority of their land, y'all? The Louisiana Purchase. But there's some flaw in that. Because remember, in 1803, the French surrendered in Haiti because they lost the war. They was fucking them up.
They so-called
You
claimed that Haiti and La Louisiana were theirs. I hate that because can't nobody claim shit. But they got their ass beat.
Okay, so if they surrendered, right, in Haiti, and they had control of La Louisiana and Haiti, which was the Americas at that time. So when they surrendered in Haiti, then they lost. So the part of that they owned.
That's too much backwoods. But we get it. We get it. Shout out to them.
Building built by slaves. The gentleman that laid the first brick laid the last. The balcony hole.
Now, I need you guys to use your discernment in listening to this. Use your discernment. They're going to say slaves, they're going to say this, and they're going to say that, but you need to look at the building structure and then talk about some slaves. At the same time, the building structure, everything that was being done, and then there's a slave narrative involved, and you're talking about the children of Israel at the same time. So
Pews that actually were built by slaves. They have the oldest information in this building. That information is written.
now I'm going to interrupt this thing because I'm not going to let this thing flow cleanly. She said this structure was built by slaves and they were utilizing this language. Okay? Keep this in mind.
In cursive Hebrew writing. Downstairs, the air holes that the people, when they hid beneath the floors, they were able to use are actually African prayer symbols. This building was built during the night hours. It was also not only used as a place of worship, but it was used as a place to help out on the Underground Railroad. One of the greatest.
Now, you telling me that structure right there was built at night? You guys got to hear this again. Hear this again. Go back.
This building was built during the night hours. It was also not.
It was built during the night hours. Now, if I'm mistaken, she is saying that these were built by slaves, African slaves. African slaves came over off a boat, off a ship, nothing on them, right? They was butt naked, right? Remember that old picture, right? The old picture with the ships and they all right next to each other, vomiting, shitting on each other and pissing. Anything, right? That's what they got. You can actually go to Watts in California, and it's called the WCLC, and they had a whole they have a whole regeneration of that ship and everything. It's it's cool, but they're actually showing how these people actually have been packed like sardines on the ship, and then they came out with a lot of energy and built some shit like this. Okay, so at the end of the day, what we doing, we got to listen to this, but at the same time, separate yours from theirs.
Not only used as a place of worship, but it was used as a place to help out on the Underground Railroad. One of the greatest missions I believe ever taken out and carried through was handled beneath the floors of First African Baptist Church. There are many items in here that now stands as proof of the Underground Railroad. In the ceiling of the church is a code that this building is used as a safe place, and that code.
Now, when you look at that, right, you look at that ceiling, you can actually look at old, you can look at every state courthouse. Really, you got to go to your appellate courthouse. Any appellate courthouse you go to, you'll see this type of structure in every state. That right there, look at them chandeliers real high, the structure of everything. That's not done in a matter of minutes. That's not done just on slave labor. I mean, then you would agree that actually that these slaves actually built all these pyramids and things like that. Man, get out of here. Even if they were slaves, let's say they were slaves. They had to have some type of education or some type of training in being able to build mathematically and engineer precise structures. Okay.
Code is 9-patch. 9-patch is a quilt symbol that was used during the Underground Railroad to identify safe places. So that 9-patch was placed right in the ceiling of the First African, in the ceiling of the First African, a quilt symbol that was used during the Underground Railroad. In the ceiling of the church is a code that this building is used as a safe place, and that code is 9-patch. 9-patch.
Now, you telling me these some African slaves that were Israelites that had language that create that structure at night when nobody else was paying it, everybody was asleep, right? Slave masters was asleep. And at the same time, they created all these symbols and languages in quilt, 9-patch, and she's talking all this stuff. And they was some dang on, watch my language, some dang on slaves. This is intricate. I mean, hey, you're gonna learn something today.
Patch is a quilt symbol that was used during the Underground Railroad to identify safe places. So that 9-patch was placed right in the ceiling of the First African.
Has anybody here ever heard of a 9-patch? What is a 9-patch? When you doing quilt and stuff like that, you're making patches that have messages in between of what you're doing, right? Our people did that. Everything was designed for a reason, with symbols and messages just naturally being done. Nobody can explain it. It was just being done. But she's explaining it right now with these people that was considered to be West African slaves were doing at the dead of night while massive was asleep. They didn't build structures. They didn't create symbols and signs and all kind of shit. I mean, this stuff is immaculate. And look at it today. This is today. But they did this with no resources. None. Zero.
African Baptist Church in Plainview. If you're interested in getting a tour of this church, you're welcome to come to First African Baptist on Franklin Square, or you can call 233-6597, and you will.
Okay, make a note of that. If you're in this area or you ever plan on being in this area, there you go. There you go. There go the website, there go the phone number, there go the name. I ain't even about to go back over that. That's crazy. This is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, get in here. When I say all secrets about to be revealed with this post, about to blow your mind, it's about to blow your mind because they left this out of history on purpose. Now, I want you to notice something above my head. Notice something. Georgia, South Carolina, right? But they said October 1526, enslaved Africans first recorded rebellion against slavery. Hold up. So we was fighting the Spanish colony, now called Spaniards or Puerto Ricans, or the so-called Mayans and Aztecs, right? Then 1619, the Europeans sided with the Spanish, right? Sided with the Spanish. Same thing, Miguel, the one to cut your grass and put your roof over your house and do it for the low, standing out in front of Menards. They sided with the Europeans to fight us, right? Now, they erased this date, 1526, because that means that indigenous peoples here already, but they start calling us the Africans right off the bat. See, that's what conquerors do. They go to each part of the earth and say, yeah, man, you African, you African, you African. These are the same descendants that's white peoples in Congress. They literally are the same descendants keeping up the same lie. And they say white people's not the same. Shit, bullshit, bullshit. They lie so good, they got everybody else believing it. And leaving out this story, 1526. This is just the first recording. So that means you got to go back 1400s, 1300s, 900s, 800s, 500s, before Christ, AD, BC, right? See, this is why they left this narrative out. Because if you put this narrative in there, then what about the 1619 with the 20-odd Negroes that came to America? So if they was the so-called first Africans, then who was these so-called Africans, right? See? They left this out on purpose. All secrets revealed. Man, first time I'm gonna add a video to bag up the claim to this. This is the first time I'm gonna add a video is the claim to this to show you that the 1968 Indian Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment, Indian not tax, is us. This is the first time I'm gonna do this about to blow your mind. Now, before I show this video, pay attention to the room and watch how you don't see no Native Americans in the room. That's what I want you to do when I play this video. You're going to see who the Indians are, right? You're about to see. Play the video. Now, what you will notice that you don't see Jesse Jackson. You don't see Al Sharpton, right? You don't see none of these people. Look at the room. Where's the Native Americans? Where? That's us right there. That's us right there. Where's the Native Americans at? Where is the Native Americans at? Doing the signing. Where they at? Okay, you see Lyndon B. Johnson, right? He the one signed Look at the background. You see us and the Europeans conqueror. Washington, D.C. That's who you see. You don't see no Native Americans. In one room. This is how the peace treaties were signed without Native Americans being involved. See that? Look, you see it? White and so-called black, which the Indians of the signing of the...
Look at that brother right there. He kind of looked at him twice. He looked at Lyndon B. Johnson like, yeah, okay. All right,
Civil Rights Act of 1968. Look at the Indians. Look at it.
And that one too, he nodding, looking at him like, yeah.
Where's the Native Americans, huh? Can you point them out? Where's Jesse Jackson? Where is the NAACP that turned on us? Because a lot of these people work for the NAACP. They do. But where's the ones that turned on us to call us Negro? Dr. Martin Luther King was dead a week after this. I mean, before this. Look at that. That's the Indian chiefs. Look at that. That's the Indian chiefs right here. Where's the Native Americans at, huh? Show me where's the look. Where's the Native Americans at? They nowhere to be seen. And they
All right, I'll get the picture. This is interesting right here. This is interesting.
Y'all ever seen Thomasine and Bushrod?
You never told us where you was from. I'm from a lot of places. Where you from? I was born and raised right here in this town. My folks helped build it. I see they left you a part of it. I bet your folks was from Texas. There's something about you that brings Texas to mind.
Not Africa? Pay attention, y'all. Come on, man. Look, he whooping the horse because he can't control him. The real cowboy got to show him.
See how that works?
I just seen something saying tobacco was a healer before they got to it. Pay attention. Look at him. He pissed off because the real cowboy got to show him. Who else are we?
I don't care what you do to me, you savage. It ain't going to bring back your princess.
Why he call him a savage? Ain't that what they call the Indians? Pay attention.
Is it? What's wrong, Selden? Tell me.
There's nothing wrong, ma'am. We just stopped to get some water.
But we don't have no water to spare. I think you better just move on.
Selden, take me to them.
We're on our way to Boley to join the rest of our people. The going is hard, but we're going to make it anyhow.
Yep. Watch the bomb. Watch the bomb.
Nicolia, you said earlier that you knew my parents.
I knew them when they were killed.
Yeah, Bacolia's father was chief of the Comanche Nation.
Your mother was also Comanche. Her name was Loa. When she was only a seed, she ruled with her father in raids against the intruders. Your father was tall, straight like tree, strong, and blacker than the great buffalo.
Don't mean her look alike. Man, y'all subscribe. I had to lay my aunt to rest. Black Fox, y'all ever seen this? Pay attention, America. I got it for days. Grandma Nebraska showed me it all. Aunt Louise giving me the power now. Look at this. They try to show you how close we were. Pay attention.
I do hope this will contribute to the peace in Texas. And find see how what. I think they both had the same mom, them two.
Huh?
Britt Johnson says that one engine's responsible for his bringing back all his women and children the cows and Comanches took last year. That being so, we owe him a considerable debt.
They owe Indians, not the natives. Pay attention, America. Come on now. I showed y'all in Thomasine and Bushrod the Comanches were black.
Captain Beck, I want you to meet my Conroe brother, Running Dog. You speak Texan? No, but I speak English. I hope you can understand. Black Fox, a gift for you for winning the race.
Now we beat them in the race. They try to show you that the Comanches was black on Thomasine and Bushrod. Come on now.
I have traveled far and wide in this great land, rain or shine, to bring the word of the Lord to his chosen people. You here on Elm Creek.
I showed y'all on Posse and all the other movies, always a pause or a thunderstrike.
In the face of the attack by red savages a year ago.
Who is?
In the face of the attack by red savages a year ago.
Huh?
The attack by red savages a year ago.
This is like my grandma. Pay attention. Come on, man. I'm the GOAT.
As our white race spreads ever over this mighty continent, so that the savage races may be redeemed by our Savior's pure blood, which is also the pure white blood.
Y'all ready for the bomb? Pay attention, y'all. Pay attention.
Are you sure you want to be seen standing so close to a colored savage like me? As a follower of Jesus, I'm a horse's behind.
Now, if it's natives in the movie, why they ain't let the natives?
These are my people now. I won't go back. Can I marry? I'm not Mrs. Holtz anymore.
Yeah.
Is operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Now you guys got to listen closely to this. Listen very closely.
Their organization, Family Search, maintains the Granite Mountain Records Vault in Utah, a nuclear-proof facility carved into solid rock holding over 2 billion names on microfilm, climate-controlled, earthquake-resistant, designed to survive catastrophe. Why does a church maintain the most comprehensive genealogical archive in human history? Because of a doctrine called baptism for the dead. Members trace their ancestry specifically to perform proxy baptisms on deceased relatives, offering them posthumous membership in the faith. The records exist primarily for religious purposes you never consented to. In 2008, the Vatican instructed Catholic parishes worldwide to stop sharing records with Mormon genealogists. In 1995, Jewish groups reached an agreement with the church to stop posthumous baptisms of Holocaust victims after discovering hundreds of thousands had been baptized without family consent. The controversy continues. Names keep appearing in temple records. Anne Frank, Holocaust survivors, celebrities, politicians. The database grows. And then there is Ancestry, the company most Americans use to trace their family trees, founded by graduates of Brigham Young University. Built initially on digitized LDS publications, now owned by the Blackstone Group, a private equity firm that purchased it for $4.7 billion. Church members receive free access. The company uses LDS records extensively. According to researchers at Harvard, members can send relatives found on Ancestry directly to the church for proxy baptism with the click of a button. You pay a subscription to find your ancestors. Someone else uses them for religious rituals. I keep returning to a question that bothers me more the longer I sit with it. We are told that record keeping before 1870 was simply less thorough, that governments did not prioritize documentation, that fires happened and records were lost through ordinary misfortune. But the pattern suggests something else. The 1890 census was the first stored without local backup copies. Every previous census from 1790 through 1880 had redundant copies kept at state and county levels. For 1890, everything went to one basement in Washington, one location, one fire, one decision to let damaged records rot for 12 years, one authorization to destroy what remained, one day before the fireproof building opened. Maybe I am seeing patterns where none exist. Maybe 63 million names reduced to 6,000 is just bureaucratic incompetence. Maybe 40% of southern courthouses burning is coincidence. Maybe the fact that every document type connecting Americans to pre-1870 ancestry has been compromised is simply how history works. Messy, incomplete, unfortunate. But I do not think you believe that anymore. I think you are sitting with the same question I have been sitting with for months. If you wanted to disconnect a population from its own history, if you wanted to ensure that people could not trace their origins beyond a certain point, if you wanted to create a wall that looked like accident rather than design, what would you do differently than what was done? The records that survived are held in a nuclear-proof vault by a religious organization. The company you pay to access them was built on those same religious archives. The government census that documented the transition generation was destroyed through a combination of fire, neglect, and deliberate authorization. The local records that might have filled the gaps burned in patterns that researchers have called suspicious for over a century. Your family tree does not start in 1870. That is simply where the paper trail was cut. Everything before that, you will have to find another way. The stories your grandmother told, the names she mentioned that do not appear in any database, the places she described that sound nothing like what the history books say existed. Those stories are records too, older than any census, harder to burn, impossible to authorize for destruction. Someone is still telling them. The question is whether anyone is still writing them down before that generation disappears. For 2 billion names on microfilm, climate controlled, earthquake resistant, carved into solid rock holding over 2 billion names on microfilm, climate controlled, earthquake resistant, designed to survive catastrophe. Why does a church maintain the most comprehensive genealogical archive in human history? Because of a doctrine called baptism for the dead. Members trace their ancestry specifically to perform proxy baptisms on deceased relatives, offering them posthumous membership in the faith. The records exist primarily for religious purposes you never consented to. In 2008, the Vatican instructed Catholic parishes worldwide to stop sharing records with Mormon genealogists. In 1995, Jewish groups reached an agreement with the church to stop posthumous baptisms of Holocaust victims after discovering hundreds of thousands had been baptized without family consent. The controversy continues. Names keep appearing in temple records. Anne Frank, Holocaust survivors, celebrities, politicians. The database grows. And then there is Ancestry, the company most Americans use to trace their family trees, founded by graduates of Brigham Young University. Built initially on digitized LDS publications, now owned by the Blackstone Group, a private equity firm that purchased it for $4.7 billion. Church members receive free access. The company uses LDS records extensively. According to researchers at Harvard, members can send relatives found on Ancestry directly to the church for proxy baptism with the click of a button. You pay a subscription to find your ancestors. Someone else uses them for religious rituals. I keep returning to a question that bothers me more the longer I sit with it. We are told that record keeping before 1870 was simply less thorough, that governments did not prioritize documentation, that fires happened and records were lost through ordinary misfortune.
Now, that's been my theory, if I can use that word, that prior to 1870, nobody was keeping records like that, especially indigenous people. Nobody was documenting anything. This is where you get into the marshals and everything, the census takers and people coming around, looking, documenting things. And then what this person was saying, this could be AI generated. It was just interesting to me. That's why I'm not really commenting, just something for you to listen to, is that a lot of these people was able to create these baptisms and take these names. and then burning the records behind it. If you guys were listening to it, I'll just translate a little bit based on what I'm discerning from what I'm hearing, is that these people were taking this information and utilizing it and applying it to them based on, he was talking about Jews, the Holocaust, and all these different people that was coming over here. And then the Vatican stepped in, BlackRock stepped in. I mean, I don't know nothing about that. We don't know if it's true or not, but we know about Utah, the Latter-day Saints. We know about them. We know what they have in that big vault that they got down there where they keeping all these documents and all this information. You see, that was the one I want to go into. This is the last one. This last one is going to take us into what I'm going to start on in my presentation. Sorry it took so long, but just be patient because we're going to get through this after we take this quick break or whatever, because I want you guys to digest what you heard before we get into something else. And then we're going to get into these other two fashions of law, policy, but this will take us into that.
Never realize how many times their money is taxed. This is what J.P. Morgan meant when he said people keep paying tax after tax because they never learn how the system really works. Think about it. You wake up in a house that's taxed. You drive to work in a car that's taxed. You fill it with gas that's taxed. Then your paycheck is taxed again. Try to invest, more taxes. Then you die. And your family gets taxed again on the very things you've already paid taxes on. Never realize.
Okay, let's do this again. And I'm going to turn my camera on. So that way I can go along with her and it's like you had the sign language in the back while she talking. I'm going to be doing some sign language in the back. Hold on, let's do this real quick. Add some comedy to this shit. You don't believe me? Well, at least you're going to believe the elder sister. Let's try this again.
Realize how many times their money is taxed. This is what J.P. Morgan meant when he said people keep paying tax after tax because they never learn how the system really works. Think about it. You wake up in a house that's taxed. You drive to work in a car that's taxed. You fill it with gas that's taxed. Then your paycheck is taxed again. Try to invest, more taxes. Then you die. And your family gets taxed again on the very things you've already paid taxes on. So how do you avoid this trap? Nobody ever wants to tell you, but here it is. It's all laid out right here in this book. The only living trust book you'll ever need. If you
That's enough. I'm giving her a quick little marketing and advertisement. But that right there, very important. You're getting taxed. And if you don't know you're getting taxed on everything, then, hey, go on get taxed. All right. So what we're going to do, I want you guys to marinate on that. We're going to take a quick break real quick while you guys marinate on that. All right. So this is what we're going to do here. Now, I'm going to bring up this one video. No, I'm gonna leave that out. Hey, look, let's go. Let's get straight to it. All right. So under the circumstances, what we have is a lot of people do not understand how the system works. And I want to end it off with the one young lady that was talking about how the system works. And, you know, you're getting taxed for everything. If you don't understand you're getting taxed for everything, then you just don't understand. Everything is considered a tax. When I mentioned Article 1, Section 10, Clause 2, and, you know, that deals with if you look at that Constitution and understand what that means, then you'll know where I'm going. The New Deal, 1933, House Joint Resolution 192, Public Law 73-10. We get into that information, we'll understand what we're talking about. Now, what I'm going to do is at the first thing I'm going to get back into this Uniform Bonding Code and understand what people's, what we consider to be what our public officials have a duty to do. And based on the fact that, most of the people have been enfranchised or incorporated in the United States, basically dealing with, what you would consider to be copper colored people. Those people then now being incorporated into the United States at this present time, how to function within it, and then also how to maintain your own sovereignty and your privacy at the same time while doing business with them. So we get into what we could call to be doing business as, right? A DBA, right? Under a DBA. If you remember, when I showed you the difference between the 1040, the tax returns, and the classes of taxes, something you need to look into is that when you file a 1040, you are considered to be an individual. If you're an individual, by definition, those fall into the classes and titles of a person. By definition, that person is considered to be an individual, a corporation, a trust, a partnership, whatever it might be. Now, the one thing that is attached to that is the word income. Now, if you look up what the definition of income is, then you'll know what classification that you fall under when you file in this return. Now, there's only three things that are major when we're dealing with the United States in your own personal life. What that is taxes, credit, debt, employment, loans, all these different things that you can utilize. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look into what the definition of income is. All right. So once we get into the definition of income, and that was the one thing I didn't bookmark, is what the definition EFGHI, what income is. Okay, so in order to understand what income is, there it is, right there. All right, we're about to get into it. I'm just going to go ahead and share the entire screen, so I ain't got to jump around. So everybody give me a 1 in chat if you can see the screen. I'm looking at my phone. I can see the screen, so you guys can see the screen. Now, here's the definition of income right here, right? You look at the definition of income. Now, this says 16th century. This is the 16th century. That 16C means 16th century. Now, if we're talking 16th century, that's the 1500s. That is prior to the United States becoming the United States. So that means this term has existed prior to the existence of the United States. Now, this definition says income is the money or other form of payment that one receives, usually periodically, from employment, business, investments, royalties, gifts, and the like. Now, if you have a tax return, you have a 1040, right? That's your employment. Usually people file 1040 from employment. Business, you can file a 1065, which is a LLC, LLP type tax return. Investments, you have 1099, so on and so forth, 1099K, 1099Bs, DIVs, those things. You have royalties, gifts, those are still 1099Ks or other type 1120s as well. That's business investments as well. You have gifts, that's your 709, right? And then within that, you have Schedule Ks, that is your Class 5 that deal with gift and estate. And then you have your Schedule B, which to me is a Class 5 as well, because that's where you input your 1099s. And it says, and the like. C, earnings. And then the CF, profit. So income is considered to be profit. Now, I'm pretty sure nobody is actually going to work to make a profit. They're going to work to make a living, to get paid, so that way they can do what they need to do for their own personal life. Last time I checked. Because if you want to go make a profit, you will set up your own business. At least I would think you would. All right. Now, what we're going to get into, just wanted to get that to you. Now, what we're going to get into is this, right? We're going to start with this right here. All right. Now, right here, we're going to start right here. Says on September 17, 1787, 12 state delegates of the 13 state colonies approved the United States Constitution, not the colonists. And by their doing so, the states became constitutors. Right? So let's go over here to Black's Law Dictionary. Let's find constitutors. Let's see what that means. Let's see what constitutors mean. All right, let's get these things down. This is how we're going to walk this down. Okay? Because I want you guys to really get a good idea what you're getting here. Now, if we go to constitutors, where'd it go? Hopefully it's in there. I don't know if it's in there or not. Okay. I didn't put that in there. This is kind of like something that just came across me. Nothing usually go as it is with me. You're going to learn that. I usually do things on the fly, but I want to at least have something in order. So that way, once we get down to it, we'll understand what that is. Jeez. You guys, close your eyes while I'm rolling through this. I don't want y'all to get dizzy. Jeez. Okay, so obviously they don't have that in there. All right, so what we're going to do then, since it's not there, we're going to look up constitutor. And what is No, I said constitutor. Look, you can't even find it. It's not even there. It's not even there. So based on provided search results, constitutor is to be a transcription error. All right. All right. So under the circumstances, let's go back. See, they don't even have it. But you see, here is a constitutor. A constitutor is defined under civil law as one who by simple agreement becomes responsible for the payment of another's debt. It says see Black's Law Dictionary 6th edition. Now I'm in the ninth edition. This is how they take things out and put things in. So a constitutor is defined under civil law as one who by simple agreement becomes responsible for payment of another's debt, right? So if you're listening to me, Chameleon, this is what we're talking about. Now, based on the fact that these delegates, right, these 12 delegates of the 13 state colonies approved the United States Constitution. And by their doing so, the states became constitutors, right? And being a constitutor, they became liable for all debts, public and private, right? Many early immigrants to the United States arrived here as bonded slaves. A person of wealth or substance became the payer, and they got that in brackets, meaning that it can't be held, but that's what they're calling it, but it wasn't utilized as that term at that time. This is a popular term or present term that they're using. That's why it's in brackets, it's covered up. By offering to pay or promising to pay or bond the debts of another person and usually pay the cost of his or her voyage to America. Now, if we go back here, right, this is 1787. Okay, 1787. This is the breakdown. Many early immigrants to the United States arrived here as bonded slaves. A person of wealth or substance became the payer by offering to pay or promising to pay, or the debts to pay or bond the debts of another person and usually pay the cost of his or her voyage to America. This made the payer a constitutor and gave him title as master over the debtor slave by written contract. A bonded slave is a corporate fiction. The payer's new title and power as the bond master of the debtor causes the immigrant to become a bond slave in the property of the master until such time he has paid back his investment by the bond slave or by someone else. This means that the bond master can buy and sell these contracts. Now, I might be getting ahead of myself, but if you look at a mortgage, you're dealing with something that's kind of identical. And I'm going to say kind of identical. And this is where people kind of get it a little bit misunderstood. So under the circumstances, Lubis, you're gonna get a chance to come up here too. So you better stay put. You're gonna bring your ass up here, bro. Trust and believe. You're gonna come up here and talk. You gonna all that chatty patty, you good. All right. So under the circumstances, the 30-year mortgage, right? You got a 30-year mortgage. Under the circumstances, under that contract, based on this corporate fiction, Because if you look at your mortgage, if you look at a deed of trust or whatever that you have under that contract that is connecting that, as I showed before, it's a security instrument. Now, under the circumstances of what we're dealing with right here, this is a remix of what you're dealing with now. How would they be able to create bond slaves in order to get around slavery and the abolishing of slavery? Title 42, Section 1994, right? Peonage abolished. Okay. Now, if you look at it from this aspect, you are in debt for 30 years and you don't become free and clear until after that 30 years. And in that 30 years, the principal is due. A lot of people think they're paying on the principal during that time. They might be paying a portion of the principal, but most of it is interest. But when you look at your contract, the principal amount due is due at maturity. So when you look at what this is saying right here, right? Well, right here, this made the payer a constitutor and gave him title as master over the debtor, and you got slave right there, by written contract. In order to get out of that contract, you got to pay. Now, when you look at your contract, it's gonna say Joe or Jane Blow, a single woman, a single man, a married woman, a married man, or a widow or something. There's going to be something out after that. And the name, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, is going to be in all caps. And it's going to be in bold. What's going on, Heartfelt? J-Dub, what's going on, brother? Now it says right here, the payer's new title and power as the bond master of the debtor causes the immigrant to become a bond slave and the property of the master until such time he is paid back his investment by the bond slave or by someone else. This means that the bond master can buy and sell these contracts. Now, when you look at any type of mortgage or any type of loan or anything that you're getting, except for like a credit card or something of that nature, it's always going to end up in somebody else's name, unless you actually got a loan, got like a little loan, small loan at the bank or whatever, is under a certain type of amount. Yeah, that's different. But what we're dealing with is mortgages and what we say, mortgage-backed securities and pooling and service agreements. Okay, so he's dealing with an automobile or a car. Those are the big ones right there. Now, under the circumstances, it's a trickle-down effect, but usually after 6 to 9 months, depending on the type of bank or financial institution you're dealing with, that thing is sold. Usually after a certain period of time, and anybody can attest to this, that you're going to be paying somebody else, not the one you initially dealt with. So if you put these two together, you pretty much have the same issue of what you're seeing right here. And this is why I tell people in the power of what you think you have, you really don't have that much power based on the repurchase agreement that you got into without you knowing. that securitized it and bonded you. Now, I could jump around and go back to the other things that we did, but I'm going to have to bookmark these things so I could go back to the videos, pull them up, and have them ready. But I want to keep going forward. So you go back to the videos and learn it if you really want to. Now, that buy and sell these contracts is called assign or assignee. These are assignments. This is where you can go to any investment. You get onto any investment, real estate investment type thing, look them things up. They have whole events on buying notes. Okay. Now, if a bonded slave was mistreated by his bond master, the law did not represent him because the bond slave, a corporate fiction, had no human rights afforded to him by any law. Corporate fictions have no rights. If the bonded slave desired rights, he was obligated to negotiate them in his contract with the bond master before accepting the contract. If the bonded slave runs away from his abusive bond master, now look, don't look at this figuratively only, look at it, literally only, look at this figuratively. This deal with a mortgage. The law in place, however, attached to a bounty, hunted him down and returned him to the bondmaster. Remember also that the first slaves in America were Indian and then Caucasian of English, French, Irish, and German ancestry. All right. Now, when you're dealing with these Indian slaves in America, these Indian slaves were ones that ended up incorporating and going along with these colonies and then subjecting themselves to that. So, as mentioned before, okay, so that's what I want. That's what I want to deal with. I didn't want to go too much deeper into that. I want to get that to you. Now, what I want to do is make sure that we get this part right? Let's talk about bonding and principles of maxims, right? Bonding and principles / maxims. So right here, it says statutes are the motor vehicles of government. They're used to collect revenue, to collect power, and to provide public service. Properly constructed statutes serve the public properly. Poorly constructed statutes poorly or destructively. A defective statute is easily misused. The easy misuse of a statute is an invitation to a rampant misuse of the statute. If a statute can easily be misused to get money or power, its misuse is virtually certain. The bonding of negligence encourages, and I'm coming down here, right? I'm coming down here and I'm gonna come right back up top, right? The bonding of negligence encourages the commission of negligence on the part of the people who do not pay the premium. A bonding company shall not bond negligence. No statutes are bonded against this deliberate misuse, i.e. criminal use. If malfeasance, criminal malpractice, were to be bonded, that bonding would encourage malfeasance. Malfeasance, if unchecked, will multiply. Now, deliberate misuse, misapplication of a statute is a criminal act. The lack of job insurance bonding makes people personally more cautious, causing a decrease in accidents, negligence, malfeasance, and crime. The cost of bonding premiums discourages negligence. Now, I'm going to come over here and we're going to talk about abuse of rights. Right here, you're dealing with abuse here. To damage a thing, to depart from legal or reasonable use in dealing with a person or thing, to misuse, to injure a person physically or mentally in the context of child welfare, to hurt or injure a child by maltreatment. In most states, a finding of abuse is generally limited to maltreatment that causes or threatens to cause lasting harm to the child. Now, just want to come down here to abuse of rights and what we're talking about here. The improper and tortuous use of a legitimately issued court process to obtain a result that is either unlawful or beyond the process's scope. Also termed abuse of legal process, malicious abuse of process. So what I'm showing you is the connection. I'm just showing you the connection of what these people have, right? This is what they have in front of them, and this is what they're doing to intentionally violate these things. I'm showing you all these things are here and defined. This is Black's Law Dictionary 9th. Okay? This is Black and got distracted. Something came up. All right, so look, this is the Black's Law Dictionary. Now, what we're going to talk about right here is we're going to go to through here. We're going to look up these things, right? All right, so right here, American common law, right? American common law is the body of English law that was adopted as a law of the American colonies and supplemented with local enactments and judgment. The body of judge-made law that developed during and after the United States colonial period, especially since independence, also termed Anglo-American common law. All right. Now, when we deal with these mortgages and what they're doing within the law, you have something that we're going to get into in regards to these, I would say, remedies you can actually look into. Right? So you got this word right here, takeover. Now it says tender offer. Okay? Now, when we get into, I'm just giving you these words and then I'm just going to go into it. Okay? Now, we get into what we call tacit, implied but not actually, expressed, implied by silence or silent acquiescence, a tacit understanding, a tacit admission, civil law, arising by operation of law, constructive, a tacit mortgage, so on and so forth. Tacit acceptance, an acceptance of an offer indicated by circumstances or operation of law. Tacit admission, see implied admission under admission. Now, when we get to acquiescence, and I gotta make this right here. We got acquiesce, we got acquiescence. To accept tacitly or passively, to give implied consent. Acquiescence, a person's tacit or passive acceptance, implied consent to an act. Now, when we come down here to admission, right, we're going to come down to admission. I didn't actually write the page number down, but right here. Okay. Any statement or assertion made by a party to a case and offered against that party, an acknowledgement that facts are true. Okay. Now we're going to go to takings. I'm going to put this all together. Right? Taking. It's a criminal and tort. It's criminal and tort law, the act of seizing an article. But what we're going to do is we're going to come down here, and then we're going to go over here to constitutional law, where it states that the government's actual or effective acquisition of private property, either by ousting the owner or by destroying the property or severely impairing its utility. There's a taking of property when government action directly interferes with or substantially disturbs the owner's use and enjoyment of the property. See condemnation, eminent domain. Okay. Now, when we come down here, you're going to look at the takings clause. Right? The takings clause, the Fifth Amendment provision that prohibits the government from taking private property for public use without fairly compensating the owner. All right. So if you're looking at what we got in front of us, right? So I just want to give you these definitions. All these definitions are definitions that we can actually utilize in everyday living. Now, the last thing I want to give to you is this thing called ultra vires. Okay? This ultra vires right here. Okay? Latin is Latin for beyond the powers, unauthorized, beyond the scope of power, allowed or granted by a corporate charter or by law. The officer was liable for the firm's ultra vires actions. Okay? Now, with that being said, I want to really talk about this because when you understand what we're dealing with in regards to this situation right here, okay, I want to give you those, right? You can actually pull it back up, take those snapshots, and get a clear understanding of what those definitions are and how to apply it. But under the circumstances of what we're dealing with, we're actually dealing with a system that is operating per se in bondage slavery still today, and reorganized it in order to deceive the people. Phew. Boy, it's just one of them days. Hold on. But let's talk about how it's going to actually get going. How this actually starts. We're going to talk with acceptance. Right? Let me give you this real quick. Let's talk about this. let's go here. Now, this right here is called Modern Money Mechanics. Okay, so this was actually created at the Chicago Federal Reserve, right? If you look right here, this is Modern Money Mechanics, a workbook on bank reserves and deposit expansion, right? Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. If you want a complete booklet, it's available in printed form free of charge from Public Information Center, Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, P.O. Box 834, and that's the information. Right, here's the introduction. The purpose of this booklet. Now, just know I gave you those definitions. I went along the rim. At the same time, I'm kind of distracted. I got things in 2 ears going on. I'm being distracted. So just bear with me. Introduction. The purpose of this booklet is to describe the basic process of money creation in a fractional note reserve banking system. The approach taken illustrates the changes in bank balance sheets that occur when deposits in banks change as a result of monetary action by the Federal Reserve System. And it has a hyphen, the Central Bank of the United States. So the Federal Reserve System is the Central Bank of the United States. The relationships shown are based on simplifying assumptions. For the sake of simplicity, the relationships are shown as if they were mechanical, but they are not, as is described later in the booklet. Thus, they should not be interpreted to imply a close and predictable relationship between a specific central bank transaction and the quantity of money. So that last sentence is saying, for the sake of simplicity, the relationships, right? So it's talking about the relationship, shouldn't be interpreted to imply a close and predictable relationship between the central bank transaction and the quantity of money. So we have two separate things going on: central bank transaction, quantity of money. All right, so the introductory pages contain a brief general description of the characteristics of money and how the U.S. money system works. The illustrations in the following two sections describe two processes. First, how bank deposits expand or contract in response to changes in the amount of reserves supplied by the central bank. And second, how those reserves are affected by both the Federal Reserve actions and other factors. A final section deals with some of the elements that modify, at least in short run, the simple mechanical relationships between bank reserves and deposit money. Okay. I'm making sure I'm here. Peace to everybody coming in and out. Everybody coming in and out. All right. So I'm looking at the wrong. There we go. All right. So what is money? Now, remember, if you guys just coming in, this is a workbook on bank reserves and deposit expansion from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago called Modern Money Mechanics. So what is money? If money is viewed simply as a tool used to facilitate transactions, only those media that are readily accepted in exchange for goods, services, and others' assets need to be considered. Many things from stones to baseball cards have served this monetary function through the ages. Today in the United States, money used in transactions is mainly of three kinds. Listen closely. Three kinds. Currency. That's paper money and coins in the pockets and purses of the public. Demand deposits. Non-interest bearing checking accounts in banks. And other checkable deposits, such as negotiable order of withdrawal. Accounts at all depository institutions, including commercial and saving banks, savings and loan associations, and credit unions. So that last part, and other checkable deposits such as negotiable order of withdrawal accounts at all depository institutions, including commercial and savings banks, savings and loans associations, and credit unions. Traveler's checks also are included in the definition of transactions monies, since $1 in currency and $1 in checkable deposits are freely convertible into each other, and both can be used directly for expenditures. They are money in equal degree. However, only the cash and balances held by the non-bank public are counted in the money supply. Deposits of the U.S. Treasury, depository institutions, foreign banks, and official institution, as well as vault cash and depository institutions, are excluded. This transaction concept of money is the one designated as 1M1 at the Federal Reserve money stock statistics. Broader concepts of money, M2 and M3, include M1 as well as certain other financial assets, such as savings and time deposits as at depository institutions, and shares in money market mutual funds, which are relatively liquid but believed to represent principally investments to their holders rather than media of exchange. Now, media of exchange is equal to medium, right? But the media of exchange, you can also say that it's something that's on its face that is being accepted by both parties to be the exchange for money, right? That's just like I give you oranges, you give me apples. I give you dollars, you give me bread. Same thing. It's just a medium of exchange, what you would accept and what you would not accept. While funds can be shifted fairly easily between transaction balances and these other liquid assets, the money creation process takes place principally through transaction accounts. In the remainder of this booklet, money means M1. So M1 is the concept of money that is in the Federal Reserve's money stock statistics. Okay. So the distribution between the currency and deposit components of money depends largely on the preferences of the public, as I mentioned. When the depositor cashes the checks or makes a cash withdrawal through an automatic teller machine, he or she reduces the amount of deposits and increases the amount of currency held by the public. You get that? Okay, so let me say this again. When a depositor cashes a check or makes a cash withdrawal through an automatic teller machine, he or she reduces the amount of deposits and increases the amount of currency held by the public. Now, while currency is used for a great variety of small transactions, most of the dollar amount of money payments in our economy are made by check or by electronic transfer between deposit accounts. Moreover, currency is a relatively small part of the money stock. About 69% or 623 billion. Now, this is modern money counting. This is a long time ago. Of the 898 billion total stock in December 1991 was in the form of transaction deposits, of which 290 billion were demand and 333 billion were other checkable deposits. Now, what makes money valuable? In the United States, neither paper currency nor deposits have value as commodities. Now, I know I'm boring with this right now, but I'm just trying to show you something. If you guys can be patient, this is what the Chicago Federal Reserve is saying. It said in the United States, neither paper currency nor deposits have value as commodities. Intrinsically, a dollar bill is just a piece of paper. Deposits, merely book entries. Coins do have some intrinsic value as metal, but generally far less than their face value. What then makes these instruments, checks, paper money, and coins, acceptable at face value and payment of all debts and for other monetary uses? Mainly, it is the confidence people have that they will be able to exchange such money for other financial assets and for real goods and services whenever they choose to do so. Okay? This is this is 1990s, 1991. Actually, this came out a little bit after, during 1991, a little bit after that. But this is what they're saying. They're doing a complete analyzation of the money system because the Federal Reserve Bank, the Federal Reserve only deals with that. Interest, principal, taxes, and all the other aspects of it. Right? So if they're saying that paper currency nor deposits have value as commodities, and that intrinsically, right? So when you say intrinsically, you got extrinsic, intrinsic. So intrinsically means internally in the system in the United States, a dollar bill is just a piece of paper. And the deposit is just book entries. Then what are we saying? What are we saying here every day when we pull out that big money in a big fold in our pocket and we got money? And it's just a piece of paper. All right. So basically, this is gambling. This is gambling because it says right here that what makes these instruments acceptable at face value? Mainly, it is the confidence people have that they will be able to exchange that. So it's just confidence. But at this point in time, this is obsolete. This doesn't even hold any weight nowadays, because the bottom line, everybody has not just accepted the fact, but actually owns the fact that these paper currencies actually have value. And it's more than a piece of paper. But see, this is where we're going to get into it. What I want to do is I'm going to get down to the, here we go. Who creates money? Now, changes in the quantity of money may originate with actions of the Federal Reserve System, depository institutions, or the public. The major control, however, rests with the central bank. Actual process of money creation takes place primarily in banks. Now listen closely. The actual process of money creation takes place primarily in banks, but the major control, however, rests with the central bank. As noted earlier, checkable liabilities, right? Checkable liabilities of banks are money. These liabilities are customers' accounts. You remember I kept talking about special deposit. As noted earlier, checkable liabilities of banks are money, but these liabilities are the customer's accounts. So if the customer, okay, so make this make sense to yourself. You ain't got to make sense to me, and I don't need to make this make sense to you. I just need to show you. This is why I say this. It's elementary, my dear, but it's advanced at the same time. It's advanced for the simple fact because it's elementary thinking the way the system works is far removed. That thing is way down the street around the corner. And it's hiding. And it ain't got no sound. So if these liabilities, right, are the liabilities of the banks, but they're the customers' accounts, right? So this is our accounts. We deposit money into these accounts, but they're liabilities of the bank. How is that? What's going on, big dog? How is that? How is that? When the bank can do whatever they want. Shit, you owe something. People come to that bank. They wanna levy your account. Guess what the bank gonna do? They're gonna go in that account and gonna give them money. Whoever it might be. If it's tax liability, child support, any type of other levy that they get with the bank or with even the employee. See what I'm saying? So to continue, they increase when customers deposit currency in checks. They increase when customers deposit currency and checks, and when the proceeds of loans made by the banks are credited to borrower's account. Anybody know that? So the increase of the liabilities of the banks, I'm going to translate in this last sentence. So the increase of when they increase, meaning the liabilities increase when customers deposit currency in checks, and when the proceeds of loans made by the banks are credited to borrowers' accounts. So that means the liabilities increase when the banks start issuing out all these loan products, credit cards, and all these different things. Their liability goes up because they're using your deposits as leverage to make loans and do all these mortgages and do all these different car loans and conversions and credits and all that type of stuff that they're actually selling. They're selling you back your money. Now, this is just how I'm looking at it. That's it. In the absence of legal reserve requirements, Now, when you talk about legal reserve, reserve is currency, money or some sort that is considered to be within the United States. So that's why I call it legal. Okay, so in the absence of legal reserve requirements, right, banks can build up deposits by increasing loan investments, by increasing loans and investments, so long as they keep enough currency on hand to redeem whatever amounts the holders of deposits want to convert into currency. This unique attribute of banking business was discovered many centuries ago. Now, let me translate that. In the absence of legal reserve requirements. In the absence of legal reserve requirements means that outside the law, outside their legal obligation, regulations, banks can build up deposits by increasing loans and investments. So that means, well, hold on, because I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm gonna let them tell the story. If do I want to read this? No. No. All right, so let's go here. We'll go at the end. So these receipts, which became known as notes, were acceptable as money since whoever held them could go to the banker and exchange them for metallic money. And that's pretty much talking about bankers. They initially provided safekeeping service, making a profit from vault storage fees for gold and coins deposited with them. Okay, so this is where they got the idea from. Okay. So basically, you was being charged a fee for them holding your gold coins and stuff like that safely. Then bankers discovered that they could make loans merely by giving their promises to pay or banknotes to borrowers. In this way, banks began to create money. More notes could be issued than the gold and coin on hand because only a portion of the notes outstanding will be presented for payment at any one time. Enough metallic money had to be kept on hand, of course, to redeem whatever volume of notes was presented for payment. Transaction deposits are the modern counterpart of banknotes. It was a small step from printing notes to making book entry, credit, and deposits of borrowers. So, now, under the circumstances, what we have right here is pretty much giving you a basic background on how they create money and how they do things. Basically, what they're doing is they're reversing everything in response to whatever deposits that we provide them. And then they're taking over those accounts. Now, let's get over here to where'd they go? Let's go to special deposit. All right, special deposit. Now it says see deposit. Now I already knew it said that, but I just want to go back there so that way we get a clear idea of what a special deposit is. Okay, here's a deposit right here. Okay, under this is what we would call a deposit. The act of giving money or other property to another who promises to preserve it or use it and return it in kind, especially the act of placing money in a bank for safety and convenience. Cases, banks and banking. That's what we have, what I showed you in corporate juris secundum. The money or property so given. Demand deposit, bank deposit that depositor may withdraw at any time without prior notice to the bank. General deposit. Remember I showed you guys about general deposits or blank endorsements, special endorsements, they all run together. A bank deposit of money that is commingled with other depositors' money. A bank deposit that is to the depositor's credit, thus giving the depositor of right to the money and creating a debtor-creditor relationship between the bank and the depositor. A debtor-creditor relationship between the bank and the depositor. A bank is not required to return the actual money deposited as a general deposit, as it must with a special deposit. The bank need to return only an equivalent sum. Special deposit. A bank deposit that is made for a specific purpose, that is kept separately, and that is to be returned to the depositor. The bank serve as a bailee or a trustee for a special deposit, also termed specific deposit. Now, this is what we're talking about. We're dealing with modern money mechanics, and modern money mechanics is telling you that the liabilities of these deposits are the liabilities of the bank based on the fact that even in a general deposit, even though they say they don't have to return it, you're still considered a creditor to that deposit account. Okay? Now, what we're going to do right now, since I was just so thrown off, in this thing, we're going to take a quick break. I got to do that. I mean, this thing just threw me off. Then I'm going to recollect myself and come on back. That's what I'm going to do. That thing threw me all the way off. But let's do this. I'm going to give you something else. Man. Yeah, that actually threw me off. But yeah, but hopefully you guys will be able to get it. I think when you go over it for yourself, you go over it again, we'll be able to get something in. But I want you guys to kind of understand what relationship you in. This is going to be, eventually when we get into the whole thing, this is going to be financial literacy 101. This is what we're going to get into, financial literacy 101. Because we really need to know actually how to function in the society that we are in at this point in time in order to be able to recoup, reclaim, get, and restore and get things repaired, and then be able to live your life as your ancestors or your forefathers and foremothers wanted you to, as they did. All right, so let me find something to play. And then I would actually is it that one? Which one was it? All right. All right, we're going to pull this up, get it going. And where we at here? Boom. And hold on. All right. So under the circumstances, right? So we're going straight into offer. The other stuff I just showed, don't worry about that. But let's deal with the offer, right? So we're dealing with this right here. So right here, this is what we're dealing with. A display of willingness to enter into a contract on specified terms. So you guys already had that. This is what we're looking at right here. What an offer is. Okay, so so key things that we're looking at in this definition right here: contract, willingness, specified terms, reasonable person to understand that an acceptance having been sought will result in a binding contract. Okay. Now we're just going with that right there. Keep that in mind. That's an offer. Now what we're going to go to next is a counter offer. Counteroffer. Now, this is contracts. And offerees, new offer. So you got an offer, so you got the offerer. And now you have a counteroffer, which is the offeree. That is the one that would accept it, right? Those are the acceptance. You either accept that initial offer or you come back with a counteroffer. An offeree's new offer that varies the terms of the original offer, that ordinarily rejects and terminates the original offer. So initially, once you create a counteroffer, that original offer is now considered to be terminated, rejected, and terminated. It doesn't exist anymore. Now, also it says a late or defective acceptance is considered a counteroffer. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go to agree. Right. To unite in thought, to concur in opinion or purpose, to exchange promises, to unite in an engagement to do or not to do something. Key words here: unite in thought, to concur in purpose. This is a contract, so it's not an opinion. To concur in purpose. The purpose is that I want to buy the house, you want to sell me the house. So we're going to unite in our thought and we're going to concur in our purpose that this transaction needs to be done. To exchange promises. The offer is out there, a counter offer is there. Our agreement in that contract says, I pay you the X amount that you asked for. You promise to sell me the house or to provide consideration for that amount that you are offering. And in that time, to unite in an engagement to do or not do something. So in order for this to be done is to do something. And, well, we could say and not do something as well, which is saying that when I pay you, this is what we're going to do. So we're united. We're bonded in this matter. We have promises to be kept, meaning both sides have liability. Now let's go to an agreement. So an agreement, a mutual understanding between two or more persons about their relative rights and duties regarding past or future performances. So we're just going to deal with the future performance in the purchase. Now, this is between you and the seller. You're buying, they're selling. Offerer, offeree. Offer, counteroffer. Okay? A manifestation of mutual assent by two or more persons. I mean, the language that is being used here is powerful language that we don't use. Manifest. Of mutual assent. So we're manifesting that this is to be done. It's like God's talking. Powerful entities, creators. The parties' actual bargain, as found in their language or by implication from other circumstances, including course of dealing, uses of trade, and course of performance. UCC section 1-2013. So let's go to UCC 1-201. This is general definitions. Number 3, agreement. As distinguished from contract, means the bargain of the parties, in fact, as found in their language or inferred from other circumstances, including course of performance, course of dealing, or uses of trade as provided in section 1-303. Okay, so contract, as distinguished from agreement, means the total legal obligation that results from the party's agreement as determined by the Uniform Commercial Code. So under the circumstances, what is being said here is the agreement is verbal. I come to your house. I see you got a sign up there. Say, hey, I'd like to purchase this house. You say, hey, okay. Well, what do we plan on doing? Okay, well, what are you offering? Okay, I'm offering $300,000. You say, okay. If that's good, let me for right now. Okay, I see you at 300. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do some research. I'm gonna go through things. Is mind if I do some inspection and make sure I see the conditions? I do my due diligence and everything. Sure, and then I could come back with a counter offer, or I can just accept your offer as is. Now, just be patient. I'm going somewhere with this. So that's what we have right there. Now, let's go to acceptance. Okay, now we're gonna go to acceptance. Let's go to acceptance. Right? An offeree's assent, either by express act or by implication from conduct, to the terms of an offer in a manner authorized or requested by the offerer, so that a binding contract is formed. So we have that. So we just looked up those definitions that what we have conformed. If an acceptance modifies the terms or add new ones, it generally operates as a counteroffer. So there's your acceptance. Now we're going to look up the different types of acceptances. You got acceptance by silence, acceptance of offer, not by explicit words, but through the lack of an offeree's response in circumstances in which the relationship between the offerer and the offeree justifies both the offerer's expectation of a reply. Ordinarily, silence does not give rise to an acceptance of an offer. Now, let's go over to banker's acceptance. A banker's acceptance, a bill of exchange drawn on and accepted by a commercial bank. Banker's acceptances are often issued to finance the sale of goods and international trade, also termed bank acceptance. Now here's a blank acceptance. Acceptance by a bill of exchange, drawee, before the bill is made, as indicated by the drawee's signature on the instrument. Conditional acceptance, an agreement to pay a draft on the occurrence or non-occurrence of a particular event. So these are your major things that you have in place, okay? Now, the one thing, what did I leave out? What I left out is the fact that during all this time, the bank is not involved yet. That's why I gave you the blank acceptance and the banker's acceptance, right? Because then we're coming into that. Now, all this time, you have this agreement between two parties, buyer, seller, homeowner, home buyer. Where's the bank? Now we get over here to the bank. Now the bank, then you say, hey, I come in there, right? I come in there, and then we come into what we consider to be 5-102 of UCC, right? In the definitions, right? Where you have an applicant. They say, well, you need to come fill out this application, right? We went over this. I'm just giving it to you real quick. What an applicant is, person at whose request or for whose account letter of credit is issued. Now, what we also have is that you came into the bank because there's been an offer into the public. The offer into the public is, we have these products for you to buy, and you can come deposit your money into our account, and we'll safely hold it. And you can be able to get some of these products, being that you are now a member of our bank or a depositor of our bank. Now, under the circumstances, now they want you to fill out an application. They want you to get this thing of what you would consider to be a mortgage loan, a home mortgage loan, or so on and so forth. And in order for you to be able to buy that house. Now you have to go through a whole nother different type of circumstances and prerequisites and requirements in order to be able to get qualified for that home mortgage loan. Now, what have you just done? You just created another contract. You just created a whole nother contract. Okay. So now you have all these things coming back in: offer, counteroffer, acceptance. You have all these different things. Now you got a contract over here. Now you got a contract over here. But at the same time, what they're telling you is that this is some type of loan that we're giving you. We're loaning you our money. This is what they're saying. Based on what Modern Money Mechanics said, Modern Money Mechanics said this. Modern Money Mechanics said this. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Damn, I can't find it. Shoot. Yeah, but anyway, in this area, somewhere around here, it actually stated that the liabilities of the bank, right? The liabilities of the bank, liabilities, search. Right here. Who creates money? There you go. Right. So right here, it states that the actual process of money creation takes place primarily in banks. So the money creation takes place in the banks. As noted earlier, check liabilities of banks are money. These liabilities are customers' accounts. So they're actually loaning you your own money. They're loaning you your own money. So we get that basic understanding right there. Now, so now you have this contract over here you already got. Right? Usually people go to the bank first. Now, what people need to do is they need to go find a house first. Get that thing on a contract first. But then a lot of people say, well, you need to show me you got proof of funds. This is why you go straight to the owner and go make him the offer there and have the conversation. Get a tentative agreement to purchase the property. So that way you can get something under, you accept the offer of $300,000, right? But then you can also come back off the inspection. You can counter offer that. So on the other end, what you do have is you have the bank now that you say, yeah, they say, well, have you found a house? Yep, sure did. Yep, I found the house I wanted. Mm-hmm. Well, how much is it? Yeah, well, it's $300,000. Mm-hmm. Yep. You say, okay, well, let's see if we can get you qualified. First thing comes out their mouth. Let's see if we get you qualified. But if you understand modern money mechanics, what I'm showing you is that no money that they're supposed to be loaning is theirs. It's actually yours. And it's controlled by the Federal Reserve. and in connection and relationship to the treasury. Okay, remember all the things that I showed you. Title 43, subsection 408, subsection 7, section 408, subsection 7, 8, 9. Okay, so you look at that number 2. You actually look at the whole dynamics of what the Social Security Act states in regard to your Social Security card and your numbers and all the different type of things. So that's what we know. Now, what we're going to do is, because I don't want to harp too much on that, I want you to understand the dynamics. And we're going to go right over here. Okay. This is negotiable instruments law. Okay. These are definitions that you're seeing right now. Okay, because we talk about bearer, we talk about drawee, you talk about all these different terms and things like that. What is a negotiable instrument? Written contract for the payment of money by its form intended as substitute for money and intended to pass from hand to hand to give the holder in due course right to hold the same and collect the sum due. Promissory note. Unconditional promise in writing made by one person to another, signed by the maker, engaging to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time a sum certain in money to order or to bear. Where a note is drawn to the maker's own order, it is not complete until endorsed by him. Now, this is negotiable instruments law. Okay, it's negotiable instruments law. This is definitions. Now, here's a bill of exchange. I just was talking about these bills of exchange, negotiable instruments, promissory notes, all these different things. This is what's being said. Here's your definitions. Unconditional order, in writing addressed by one person to another, signed by the person giving it, requiring the person to whom it's addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time a sum certain in money to order or to bear. Check. All right. So this is on the bill of exchange now. Check. Bill of exchange drawn on a bank payable on demand. Kinds of checks. Personal checks. Manager/cashier's check. Memorandum check. Crossed check. Okay. Now we're going to come over here. What is a bearer? Person in possession of a bill, note, payable to bear. Okay, so let's go back over here to negotiable. Let's go over here to bill of exchange. This one right here, requiring the person to whom it's addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time a sum certain in money to order or to bear. Bear, person in possession of a bill/note payable to bear. Remember, special endorsement, right? J-Dub, all the ones that's listening that I know that are listening. That's what we have right here. Holder, payee or endorsee of a bill or note who is in possession of it or the bearer thereof. Now, this is how you occupy both sides, right? What this is showing, right, just based on common sense, when I'm looking at it, is that under these circumstances, you can actually operate both sides. And you are to be occupying them both sides. this is what it's saying. See, people want to think that those middlemen, right? When we was talking and explaining publication 1212, those middlemen are actually people that are servicing these contracts. They're servicing them, the installment contracts. They're middleman brokers. They're just brokering a deal because we have no access to the government based on the fact of we don't have any constitutional money to pay. So if we don't have any constitutional money to pay, they need somebody that can actually function as a middleman between us and the other side. Because all these people or these agencies that we have right now are considered to be de facto in nature. They're not de jure, based on bankruptcy and all the other things that I've been showing that they wrote. So this is the thing about donor, right? Trust the O's and the E's, right? The O's and the E's. But a beneficiary doesn't have two E's on it. It has a Y. You have what you consider to be the Sesta KV, right? That is the beneficiary. Those are the things that are to be returned back to the principal. So you have interest returned back to the principal, right? That's why you occupy those two positions on the outside. And then you have that middleman that's going to operate as a fiduciary / trustee, or what you consider to be a bailee or obligee or a another party, right? In that fashion, or agent. So that's the holder. The life of a negotiable instrument. Issue, negotiation, presentment for acceptance in certain bills, acceptance, dishonor by on acceptance, presentment for payment, dishonor by non-payment, notice of dishonor, protest in certain cases, discharge. Negotiability, requisites in writing and signed by maker or drawer. No person liable on the instrument whose signature does not appear thereon, subject to exceptions, right? This is why they don't sign anything, because they're not liable on the instrument. This is why they don't sign anything, because they don't want to be liable because they can't. The only one liable on the instrument is the parties that's on it. Now, your liability is there. But at the end of the day, your liability is to make sure that you zero out the balance and don't leave the debt out there into the system. That's where you get into the issue. You must balance the books, but a lot of us don't know how to balance the books. And they're like, well, how the hell you balance the books? Well, for instance, take it as if you're paying it out your own personal account. If you write a check to that seller of that house, the current owner of that house, that check is going in there. That bank is then going to balance the books as a receipt showing that it was paid. Then what you do is you actually report that payment to the Internal Revenue, to the Treasury, and they have the Treasury then send it over to the accounting branch, which is the Internal Revenue Service, to balance the books. So that way you're not liable on the tax. And you're showing them that this is only being used for your own personal and family use. It's not for gain. Now, under these circumstances, they make the issue so complicated, right? Because if you buying a house and in a car, is more complicated because they have all these other things going on at that time, because it's like a straight, like a quick microwave deal right there. Everything's going to be done right there on the spot. You're going to be there for hours. They got to run all these documents. They got to do this. They got to do that. Yeah, they got to run everything through the system. So there's really no escrow that you know of, but there is escrow. Everything that's being done through the Federal Reserve has escrow. That's why you have all of these insurance companies that, for the most part, are up under Fidelity, that they have to insure these things. They have to insure these things. And that if you've been noticing what I've been showing is that everything is insured. Everything has to be insured because it's paper. And these things are paper securities, certificated securities. These things are bonded and notes and stuff like that that's moving around, and it has to be tracked. But the only one that has the actual records is you, the one that's actually purchasing the house, purchasing the car. Now, under these circumstances, right? All of this right here. Now you can take snapshots of everything. Payable on demand, unconditional promise or order to pay. We look at this like it's rocket science. It means exactly what it says. Unconditional promise. I mean, no conditions. Or order to pay. So order to pay means that I'm ordering you to pay. So who is giving the orders and who is to follow these orders? Remember, donor, donee. Power of appointment. This is what we're talking about here. Now, we're going to go over to power of appointment, and we're going to actually look up power of appointment. I'm just saying, when you get into these terms, you have to know these terms and know where your power stands. You see what I'm saying? You got to know where these powers stands and how to be able to execute them. Because people that are actually listening want to understand this. Oh, general power of appointment. Okay, here we go. Power of appointment. A power created or reserved by a person having property subjected to disposition. A power created or reserved by a person having property subject to disposition, enabling the donee of power to designate transferees of the property or shares in which it will be received, especially a power confirmed on a donee by will or deed to select and determine one or more recipients of the donor's estate or income. Okay, that's your power of appointment. Now, general power of appointment, a power of appointment which by the donee can appoint, that is, dispose of the donor's property in favor of anyone at all, including oneself or one's own estate. A power that authorizes the alienation of a fee to an alienee, often shortened to general power. Okay? Now, that power in that donee in these definitions, this is 9th edition. This is why I only like 9th edition, because they're actually changing the language to make it seem like the donee has some type of power to do what he wants or she wants or it wants. No. So that power is subject to disposition. In those circumstances, they are to do what they are to do based on what you're ordered to do. And that's why at the end it talks about power, testamentary or will or so on and so forth. In my will, I will tell you, the will can be expressed otherwise. I'm appointing you to do X, Y, Z, and that's your job. That's it. But trust comes involved in this, and trust on a figuratively level and a literally level, a literal level. You got to be able to trust that individual person, company, or whatever it might be to handle your affairs properly for the benefit of the beneficiaries. And that's what it was used for. Okay. So this is negotiable instrument law. And these definitions talk about all these different things. So this is where the order comes in. It's very important. Now, this is another different aspect of what we consider to be money and the monetization. Now, I kept it right here so you guys can actually see what's taking place here. This is credit, money, and everyone a banker. Okay? Let me go ahead and take a look at the chat real quick. Let me see what's happening here. All right. All right, peace, everybody. Peace, everybody. Got you here. I got my whole screen up, but this is what we got going here. All right, so we're going to go to credit, money, and everyone a banker. A somewhat esoteric, but nevertheless series of questions in economic theory is, do we need a central bank? Could we run an economy without private banks or any individuals issuing their own money? Are government bankruptcy laws needed, or can the free market take care of default? The careful mathematical analysis of Arrow and DeBrew, the less careful but more institutional commentary, and the utopian writings of Thomas More all share the implicit abstraction of a world with perfect trust and costless information. In the example of the well, that ain't what I wanted. I thought that was the one I wanted. That is the okay. The credit potential of the system. No, that's not it. Okay. I thought this was the document that I wanted. It is not. No, that's not. Nope, that's not. In the meantime, yeah, I think I'm just going. Yeah, we can stop right there with that. Now, what I want to come to is also this right here. Okay. This is how you can help people out. You know, those that are more well off than others can help somebody. It's called actually assuming a mortgage, right? Now, oh man. Okay, so it's something called due on sale clause. A due on sale clause means that if you sell the house, right? Let's say if you do a private sale. Listen closely. Say you got a mortgage. You own a mortgage. You decide to put a for sale sign up on your house. Not necessarily you want to do a private sale. And somebody comes to the house and say, hey, man, I'm looking for a house. Like, okay. They're like, what you offering? This is what I'm offering. They say, okay, let's do a contract. Well, this is a for sale by owner. It's a private deal. Well, you know, I need to get a loan and all that stuff. Well, that's on you. But you need to let your agent know and everybody else know that this is an off-market deal. This is an off-market deal. What's up, Rod? And this is to remain off-market and not on the market. I'm willing to negotiate the price. But that's about it. Everything we do is private. Right? Into the Constitution, you have the right to contract. right? And you have a right to contract privately. Private contracts. You can negotiate off-market deals. If you ever been to any real estate investment company, they rather you do that. So that way you don't have to get into all the extras. You can actually make them a cash deal, and he wants it a cash deal, or she wants it a cash deal, or they wanted a cash deal, and you set up a private contract, what they also call a privity contract, with an offer and an acceptance. Everything can be done between the parties. On top of that, you can actually tell the owner, you say, look, send me your offer. Give me your firm offer of what you're asking for. Cool. Everything that you want right there. This is your offer. And once you take that offer, it then becomes a part of the binding. Once he makes you that firm offer, then you can go ahead and counter offer, accept it, do whatever you need to do at that time, and then get an agreement on how payment is to be made. That's between the parties. You don't need an agent. You don't need anybody to know what you want. Now, if you want to go run to the bank and tell them, say, hey, I need a $300,000 loan, or I need $300,000 so I can go purchase this house. Okay, cool. You found a house? Yep. Well, let's see if we get you qualified. Cool. If you want to go that route, cool. But don't come back to me talking about, well, they said we need to do. No, you don't. You figure out the way to get that $300,000 and then come to me with a check. Now, if it is to be done, then it'll be done between me and you and your bank. And then if you say the bank is going to cut the check, then we're going to have the agreement that we now have a contract. You have already been pre-approved. We already went through that pre-approval stuff and all that. You've been pre-approved for $300,000. Cool. I got the contract right here. We have a binding. Well, where's the agents and all that? This is a private deal. It's off market. Well, we only deal with conventional mortgage loans. Okay, we'll conventionally get it done. Well, you need to have escrow. No, you don't. I can actually go to Chicago Title, Orange Coast Title, or any other type of title company and say, hey, I need to get a title report on this property right here because I'm going to be buying it. Okay, what's going to cost you $250? No problem. Hey, I need to go get an appraisal on this house. Hey, I need to get a home inspector for this house. Okay, well, you're going to pay for it. And this is where you get into the agreements between the parties. The seller, hey, look, there's going to be an off-market deal. No escrow is going to be open. Basically, what we need to do is we need to split costs on, getting the appraisal, getting the full title report, making sure there ain't no other liens on it or anything else, any liens, so on and so forth, Boom. You know what I'm saying? Agree that if there is a mortgage on it, I'm not liable for it. You are. You're liable for the mortgage. You're going to pay it. Cool. Now, we got that understood. I take that piece of paper and I take that to my bank and I say, this is my deal right here. Here's the contract. Here's the offer. Here's their firm offer. Here's my acceptance. Here's my counter offer. Here's our agreement. This is what we're going to be doing. So I need funds for this, and this. I need $300,000, or that $300,000 will be deducted from that total sale. But I need $300,000. What you need it for? For this, that, and the other. Right? So in the circumstance, you get your pre-approval letter for $300,000. Now, since you got the pre-approval letter, you take it back to the seller. You say, here's my pre-approval letter for $300,000. Okay, let's get busy. You get a home inspection, you get a pest inspection, you get an appraisal on it, you get a full title report on it from a title company, and they will do that. And you will want the owner to do that because that's where they'll know what is for, hey, I'm the owner of this house. Here's my grant deed. Here's everything I got going on. I need a full title report. And they can pay for it. Sure can. Once you get that property, once you get that document, put everything on the table, y'all sit down, go over his house. Y'all can drink some a mint julep or whatever you want to do. Have a shot or a beer, or you know what I mean. Get at the barbecue pit or whatever. Bring your family, whatever you might want to do, and sit down and have a business conversation. Now everything is there. Boom. You go get that notary. Come on over to the house. Go order a notary. Come to the house. Come sign these documents. We got our witnesses here. Everything is signed. Bam. We take it to the house. We take it to the. I take my stuff to the bank as the buyer and say, here we go. We got everything in order right here. Here's copies of everything. All right. Now what? I need you to cut a check for $300,000. Sure. They got to cut the check. Now, here is what due on sale clause is. All right. So the due on sale clause is probably the most talked about, feared, and most misunderstood topic in real estate. This article will dispel any misunderstandings you may have about the due on sale. This is just a simple yet effective strategy to get around it. What is the due on sale clause? Before we discuss how to get around the due on sale, we must understand what it is and where it came from. The due on sale, aka acceleration clause, is a provision in a mortgage document which gives the lender the right to demand payment of the remaining balance of the loan when the property is sold. Hold on, let's put this in red. Let's bold it. All right. The due on sale, also known as acceleration clause, is a provision. Now, I want you guys listen to it closely. In a mortgage document, which gives the lender the right to demand payment of the remaining balance of the loan when the property is sold. Now, if that is to be true, that means you could sell it without them being involved. All right. But then it says it gives them the right to demand payment of the remaining balance of the loan when the property is sold. It is a contractual right, not a law. A contractual right, not a law. A contractual right, not a law. Okay, not a law. All right. That's why I'm gonna test your fortitude on this stuff. You see where your mind's at thinking about this. It's contractual right, not a law. So it only falls on a contract, not law. It's only on a contract. This means if title to the property is transferred, the bank may or may not, at its option, decide to call the loan due. See what I'm saying? So that means when you sell the house, you can still make payments on it. You don't have to pay it in full. You can still make payments on it because all they're worried about is what? The deed of trust. The grant deed has nothing to do with them. So when you grant the deed over when I grant the deed over to you, that's between me and you. The grant deed has nothing to do with the deed of trust. You see? Now, they would like to say it does, but it does not. Not to me. Somebody can tell me different, but not to me. Other people might say it is. No, not me. Nope. because I already know once I made that purchase, I closed escrow. I sure did. Escrow was closed. Now, any other escrow they talking about, that's something different. Now, they're going to have to explain that. This is what I'm saying. When you deal with this situation right here, right? When you deal with this situation right here, lender, they got to, and demand payment here, you got to prove to me that you got the rights to demand payment. You have rights and title to demand payment under a contract between me and you. All right. Now, an assumable loan, right, is one which is secured by a mortgage which contains no due on sale provision. FHA insured mortgages originated before 1289. I don't know what that means. And VA guaranteed loans originated before 288. I don't know what that means either. Maybe February 1988. Who knows? Contain no due on sale provision. Nearly all loans originated today contain a standard due on sale clause, which usually reads something like, if all or any part, let me underline this, of the property herein is transferred. So read the, if all or any part of the property. What does that mean? See how stupid this language is? It's stupid. If all or any part of the property. What property are you talking about? So what, I sold you half of the house, sold you the house, but not the land. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. But anyway, if all or any part of the property herein is transferred without the lender's prior written consent, the lender may require all sums secured hereby immediately due and payable. Now, we don't really need to go too far on that, because if you're actually looking at this language right here, this is what I talk about, where we voluntarily let people get involved in our affairs, and we really don't need to, if you actually know how to comprehend what you're reading. But people always say, well, I don't got $300,000 cash. Yeah, you do. If you know how to communicate with these middlemen and these brokers in order to get it done, then you can. Now, under the circumstances, for the most part, yeah, you got to have a good credit score and what they consider to be a good credit score. But if you're a first-time home buyer, right, and under FHA, that's under the Indian Civil Rights Act, the Federal Fair Housing Act, you can actually get things done in a way where you don't need a credit score is really not it. You know, you want to make sure that you can get all the different products and benefits and privileges and, you know, offers that they have, grants and all these different things that they have for first-time home buyers and Indians, American Indians, in the system west of the Mississippi, or just ones that have been displaced or have been moved away from their tribal homelands, right? Or what they consider to be tribal homelands, or their ancestral or home of their forefathers and foremothers. But neither here nor there. You can get all these things and it be done in a way where you can be able to do whatever you need to do and be successful at it. Now, being that, you got a job or whatever, so on and so forth, this, that, and the other. And I got this other video that I seen today, and I was going to show it, but I was like, nah, maybe I'll wait on that one, because it was a lot of different aspects to it, which was simple, but that had a lot of different tricks and traps in it, so I didn't want to put it up there. But But for me, it would sound like a good game. But I would say that if you got what you need and you can go to the bank and say, hey, I'm looking to purchase a property. The only thing is a for sale by owner, and I want to. Well, you ain't even got to tell them that. You ain't even got to tell them that. Really, all you're gonna do is say, hey, I'm looking to purchase a house. Want to be able to do it. Well, have you found a house? I think I found one, and go from there. Once you get your approval, then you get the pre-approval letter. Then you can move from there, and you can get this thing done. And at the same time, this due on sale clause goes in a different direction. So if you go buy it outright, see, this is talking about assuming a mortgage. So you just buy the mortgage from the previous owner and say, hey, you got this outstanding mortgage. You know what I'm saying? I'll go ahead and purchase the property for a certain part and I'll take over the mortgages. But no, this is not what this is saying. This right here, what I'm showing you is a misconception of what it actually is. What's up, Draco? This is a misconception of what it actually is. What it is if I go purchase that house from you, you got a mortgage, you're liable for it. That mortgage is in your name. I'm not going to assume no mortgage. You pay for it, but that's on you, not on me. We did a private deal. We have a right to contract. That's all constitutionally rule of law protected right there. Hands free, done. No mortgage. No mortgage company, no bank, no escrow, no nothing. This is a cash deal. And under that cash deal, I don't report to you. They'd be like, well, there was a lien on the house. Ain't got nothing to do with me. You need to go talk to them. But we have rights to title. No, you don't. Not over here. You don't own the house. And that's the major point that I'm here to make. You did all of that negotiation before you even went to the bank. How did the bank, and this is just a common sense question I'm asking, just shits and giggles, how did the bank then have possession of the house? How did the bank then give title and rights and encumbrances on the house, on the land? How did they do that? They did not sell you the house. But they're saying that they're loaning you money for the house, but they're telling you they're not going to loan you any money until you get the house. You see what I'm saying? You've already been pre-approved for $300,000. Why are they not letting you get the house? On your own. Why can't they say you've been pre-approved for that house? We're going to drop that money into the account right now. Why are they doing that? Because they want to get in on it. Common sense, right? They want to get in on it. But if you already been pre-approved for a house and they don't give you the money, that means they don't trust you. That you're just going to get the $300,000 and really go buy a house for $300,000. Or you get it for $250,000 and use $50,000, or you get it for $200,000 and use $100,000 to build that, fix the house up and do all the things that you need to do in regards to your living situation that you now have. Why not be able to get $200,000 house and get $300,000 and use the $100,000 for the repair, rehab, upgrade it a little bit, pay off insurances and things like that, so on and so forth, that you can live. All the money is going to go to my living. Why does it have to all go to the purchase, the acquisition of the house? Why can't it also go to the building up of the house? Because in real estate investment, you get the acquisition amount and you get the rehab amount. You get a rehab. Let's say the property's worth $400,000 and you say, oh shit, there's about $50,000, $60,000 worth of work that needs to be done. So that drops it down, right? That drops it down to $340,000. And on top of that, I got all these other expenses that I need to pay. That's another $20,000. Okay, that drops down to $320,000. See what I'm saying? So then after that, I said, well, shit, you know, with all that being said, man, I'm gonna offer you 280. The thing is, you don't never want to play market price for nothing. And you never want to use your own money. That's right. That's right, Nate. Money is yours. And this is what I'm trying to show you. That's what I'm saying. We're going to go. I was talking to my partner earlier. He said, financial literacy is what we lack in our community. If we lack anything else, and I was right what partner said, that is what we lack. Now, financial literacy encompasses all these things that I'm talking about, because you're not going to get any type of literacy in finances if you don't understand how the system works. If you don't know how to balance your books, do taxes, understand banking, understand trust, understand relationships, understand all these fiduciary duties, the law, the Constitution, all the statute codes, and all the other things, then you're not going to understand what I'm saying, and I'm going to bore the hell out of you, and you're going to leave. Well, that's good. Leave. Because the ones that's here is the ones going to be here under the circumstances, right, wrong, or indifferent. Because at the end of the day, you're going to understand that one thing. If I was your age and I knew this stuff, boy, I'd be a different type of person. Really, 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 really. But at the end of the day, this is why I drive it home like this, because at this point in time, once you know this information, it either going to one of two things. It's going to discourage you or it's going to motivate you, one or the other. But this is just what I'm just showing. It's like, take the veil off of Oz. Right? In our section, take it off the Wiz, right? We call them the Wiz. All right, the Wiz. Take it off the Wiz. And all these people that come in, they say, well, they're making offers in the public. They're making offers, right? So remember, where is that offer at? What page was that on? 1217. Let's go down here. Right here. This is all we need to know, right here. A display of willingness to enter into a contract on specified terms made in a way that would lead a reasonable person to understand that an acceptance having been sought will result in a binding contract. So if you go to the bank, you already know that they're making you an offer. What are they offering you? They're offering you a deposit account. They're offering you all these products that you can get. You can get credit card, you can get proof loans, you can do this, you get business loans, personal loans, mortgages, everything. I got all this stuff they have to offer you. But the only way to get that, you have to be a member or a depositor of that bank. Deposit, the act of giving money or other property to another who promised to preserve it or use it and return it in kind. The act of placing money in the bank for safety and convenience. This is their offer to you. All right. That is their offer to you. All right. And when you go down here to depositor, where'd that thing go? Damn. Okay, depositor. one who makes a deposit. Depository, a place where one leaves money or valuables for safekeeping. All right. Depository institution or organization formed under state or federal law, authorized by law to receive deposits and supervised and examined by a government agency for protection of depositors. This is what I'm saying. These definitions is just what it is. If you ask the questions, you can get the answer. If they don't want to answer, then that means that they're only there to take advantage of you. All right. So, under the circumstances, right? Under the circumstances, how you construct your trust. All right. That's just where we're going to leave it at. Now, if anybody wants to come up, you can. Peace, Rod. Peace, Draco. I'll see you up there. Bam. Jay Will. Boom. All right. Yep. This was, a little sloppy on the presentation, but at the end of the day, hopefully you guys got it at the end. But this is how we will approach this, because remember, at the end, it's always going to be show and tell. I'm actually give you some examples. I want you guys to understand what's actually going on here and how you can utilize it without trouble. There's no trouble in this, right? The money is yours, right? Based on what I showed you, by definition, the money is yours, or you have rights and titles to it. You see what I'm saying? And that's what we need to understand. In order to get that stuff done, you can actually sit back, relax, breathe a little bit, and say, man, but nevertheless, oh, I didn't see that. Okay, let me talk about that real quick, right? Simultaneous, okay, so a simultaneous transaction, right, is actually considered to be a simultaneous close, or what you consider to be a double close, right? It's also considered to be a loan modification. Now, this is just speculation. This is your conspiracy theory, if you want to call it that. Once escrow closes and you got the house and you sign that deed of trust or that security deed that you get from the bank, that's actually opening up escrow and actually refinancing or modifying the actual previous agreement that you had with that application, that application / letter of credit. And at that point in time, that double close or that simultaneous close would actually be considered something of the fact of, yeah, J-Dub, yep. That's right. Is actually considered you transferring rights and title, right? So let me show you this real quick. Let me show you this real quick. Let me show you this real quick, because I showed it the other day. I'm going to show you this real quick, and then we'll get out of there. But yeah. Okay, so remember when I showed you that sample, this sample deed of trust, right? And then the sample deed of trust, right? The sample deed of trust is called a security instrument. Let me get it right here. This right here, right? Heartfelt Center. Listening? Rod, you listening? Nate, you listening? Anybody listening? Anybody listening? That's still up in there. Million, you listening? This is what happened. Right? In the deed of trust, that's why you guys got to read the deed of trust. If you have something that has been done, not by you, or if you took over something that maybe your parents did and they're not here anymore, or your wife, your husband, or whatever you got left, or, you know, so on and so forth, whatever happened, you know, this is what you gotta look into, right? Transfer of rights in the property. The security instrument secures lender, the repayment of the loan, and all renewals, extensions, and modifications of the note. And 2, performance of borrowers, covenants, and agreements under the security and note. For this purpose, borrower irrevocably grants and conveys the trustee in trust with the power of sale the following described property. Irrevocably. Okay? So, under the circumstances, let's look up irrevocably, because this is what you would consider to be the double close. If you want to see that example, J-Dub, that's the example. That double close, that simultaneous transaction is where the buyer gives it to you, sells it to you, you get the grant deed, and then what you do is you hold rights to title in that grant deed and in Schedule 8 of the title, the land title insurance. But then you give tenements or tenancy or encumbrance or some rights to title in the deed of trust, right? Through that deed of trust to the bank, or really the investor, which is the underwriter, who's guaranteeing the loans, which is actually the state and the federal government. That's kind of how I look at it. So that's the double close. And that and their guarantee of you paying, you know what I'm saying, the interest on that deed or in that note, you know what I'm saying, is where that comes from. So let's just look up what irrevocably means. So when you know H-I-J-H-I. Okay. Irrevocable. Unaltered, committed beyond recall. Irrevocability. Irrevocable letter of credit. See letter of credit. Irrevocable offer. See offer. Okay. So there we go. So this is irrevocable. It's unaltered, committed beyond recall. So when they're saying you're irrevocably grants and conveys a trustee, that is unaltered, can't be changed. It's stuck right there. So that's where you get it from, right there. Always get it right there. You know what I'm saying? But that's where we at right there with it, man. Appreciate you, original RCJ. Yep. You know, I'm gonna bring it out and bring it. It ain't gonna be all the way clean, but we're not up here trying to be super tight and correct and anything like that. We're gonna get the information out and we're gonna break some of these things down. All I'm doing is putting these things up here for you to look at and then go from there. Then we'll be able to get into the you know, at the end, I'm gonna give you some examples. So when I'm just talking normally, I can actually get it off faster than me reading, because some of this stuff I'm like, nah. Some of this stuff is outdated. Some of this stuff is just all conspiracy theory. I don't want to give you that, where people are actually not telling you how to do something. I want more things to be practical. So outside of that, yep, that's where we're at. Right. So okay, so nothing is irrevocable to the grantor if the grantor is still alive. I get that. But at the end of the day, you still can create an irrevocable trust upon agreement. You see what I'm saying? You can still create an irrevocable. You can create a revocable or irrevocable trust. But this is where the counteroffer comes in. This is where anything that says irrevocable and all these big words that you don't understand, people say, all right, man, sign here, initial here, and people just do it. Stay and say, what does irrevocable mean? Well, hold on. Let me take this and let me look these things up before I get into it. You're going to see the whole shift of that room. They're gonna be like, oh man, dang it. He wants to look it up. But right here it says, and this is, I think this is Tennessee. This says transfer of rights in the property. Now, right there, let me show you something real quick. Let me take this down. Let me show you something real quick. I'm gonna pull this up. Let me show you something real quick. Let me show you something real quick. Let me show you guys something real quick. I'm gonna show you a title. I'm gonna show you a title. I'm gonna show you a title. Bam. Where is it at? Where is it at? Where am I gonna look at it? No. We're gonna go here with it. Let's go here. Let's go here. So let me redact this real quick. I'm gonna redact it real quick. Okay. Let me just get rid of this. We don't care about the lenders and their names. We just want account numbers gone, address gone. You don't care about the dates either. Okay. All right, let me show you guys this real quick. All right, so I took all that information out, but this is how it looks. Now, you got a grant deed. But this is what it says right here. Now I'm gonna ask you, what do you see and what do you don't see? What don't you see in here? Here you go. It says the estate or interest in the land hereinafter described or referred to covered by the report. This report is a fee. Now we're gonna go over here. We're gonna go look up what a fee is. EFGHI. Okay, fee. Okay, we got a fee here. Charge for labor or services. But no. So we got fee simple. So here's fee simple, right? It's a fee. An interest in land that, being the broadest property interest allowed by law, endures until the current holder dies without heirs, especially a fee simple absolute, often shortened to fee. Also termed estate in fee simple, tenancy in fee simple title, exclusive ownership, feudum simplex, C and his heirs. All right. So, so the estate or interest in the land hereafter described or referred to, covered by this report, is a fee. Title to said estate or interest at the date hereof is vested in, and that name is out. The land referred to in this report is described as follows. See Exhibit A attached here too. Read and approved. This is what this says. Now, what don't you see in there? But let me help you out for time constraints. Property. It says estate and land. That's it. It says this security instrument. Note. What does this say? None of that. It says ownership of the indebtedness secured by the insured mortgage. It says that. Doesn't say anything else. All right. All right. We're going to get this stuff right. We're going to get this stuff right. We're going to play these cuts right here, and then we out. We out, man. We out. You know, excuse it took so long. Yeah, I was on time at 2-something. And then that thing just went bonkers. Just went bonkers on me. You know what I'm saying? Straight bonkers. Well, let's get it. Appreciate everybody coming up here. All right, we at it tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel, man. This is what we're doing. On the last one, we out of here. Peace and love. Power to the people.
Don't move it. Don't move it. Don't move it. Yeah. Don't move it. Don't move it. Don't move it.
I'm the coach, quotes coded in oak with a ghost loaded focus. Chrome in the coat, king with the cloak, smoking that hocus pocus. Infinite styles, pivot and pile up the mileage. I'm wild with the science. You see the line on my avatar, iron jaw pride. I to devour the silence. Why you niggas steady lying? Got me laughing hard, satire and fraud. I fire the squad. Wives get crossed when I'm sparring with all the guards. Author of art, carving a mark in the bark of the market at large. Target the sharks, heart of a Spartan. I sharpen the margin with bars. You rather bargain and dodge. I'd rather you come get your taxes done. Black suit, back room. Courtroom facts in a stack, I'm relaxing the maximum. Get out of the pocket, the profit of rocket, then I just might tax you punks. Bracket your funds, I'm stacking in chunks, reacting to acid, you're begging a punch. Sometimes my community hard-headed, scarred, dreading the lessons. I chart head and start spreading the message, embedded in pressure. Sovereign living, I'm private with it, no corporate percentage. Discharging debt with a pen stroke, you still don't notice the vision. I've been telling y'all you don't want to debate me, weighty and ready. Great with machetes, linguistically shredding the petty. Grab these 15 acres. Landscape major, plan made paper, land patent stamped and sacred. Since my campaign greater, I ain't talking about Ice-T when I say that I can show you law and order. Court recorder, I sort the torture, contort the border. I eat the case, beat the state, leave a trace of the raw supporter. Briefcase aura, got your baby mama thinking that I'm a lawyer. Seminole Indian sentiment, militant on sovereign soil. Private enrollment, tribal component. I'm the boss if you're trying to employ it.
Clutch, baby. Infinite.
Yeah, I can get your land packed. Yeah, I can discharge your debt. You gotta live by 5 principles before we just connect. Cause you could pose as my friend and then really be the threat. Like Brutus Lee Julius to the dudes that killed Malcolm X.
Get your hand out of my pocket! Get your hand out of my pocket, nigga! Get your hands out of my pocket! Get your hand out! Brother, please.
Y'all think getting remedies important. We make your lawyers lose their indemnity insurance. King Chameleon, private, I don't wanna be popular. Grandpapa, Hunk Papa, Mama Black Mafia. Yeah, we them big owners holding rank. You call Rocket Lawyer, high collar owner of the bank. He in the private at the temple, like Ginobili in the paint. And we got 3 militaries, we might be rolling in some tanks. While you balancing with a check gross, going to work for debt notes. Overtime all your life paying mortgages, then you left broke. Damn. Shout out to Mayweather, who's obviously woke. He settled $18 million with a promissory note. I'm not your corporation's chattel, this world gotta be a joke. Blind leading the blind, so we never gonna see.
But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
Everybody fake woke while the president is asleep. So I introvert myself cause it's evident to me. No one saves us but us. Buddha said it in BC. No title deeds are just reference to evidence to me. Man, you don't own it, you a tenant and it says it on your deed. You said with a sign but didn't take the time to even read. There's gotta be an idiocracy. They call you crazy as Kanye just for thinking logically. 2 million nationals backing us to stop who ain't stopping me. For instance, when Columbus came over here, they admitted Native Americans was already there. But if our kids take a test on who discovered land we on, and you say Native Americans, you get the question wrong. Don't lie to us, you are just a colonist. Can't hide the truth. We got all the proof from the anthropologists. We know the system now, it's time to get up out of it. But it's our fault, because we fought so hard to be a part of it.
Now, I will never say that progress is being made. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. You pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that's a blow made. And they haven't even begun to pull a knife out, much less try and heal the wound. They won't even admit the knife is there.
All people trying to burn us, how it's selling services with disclaimers, saying that it ain't for legal purposes. No cash, broke ass, internet burglars with temporary schemes and a lot of fraudulent dreams. Yeah, we got our own embassy, we got our own consulate, foreign administrations, and 3 armies on top of it. We live by 5 principles, but we'll die for this. Freedom back to the people, protect them from the apocalypse. I took that title that they gave me and I clouded it. F what you say, sets the Cuban. I got a bond with this. My way of thinking pissed the military off. I ain't with their way of thinking, Roman military. military law. We coming peaceful outside the mosque in the cathedral. And will resort to violence. I gotta protect my people. They call us ghetto, they call us thugs. The only God they worship, guns, oil, and drugs. I'm on the block, Martin Luther King was shot. Holding a gun that killed Kennedy, trying to find a remedy. You can't cancel me nor censor me. With chancery and sensory, God-like energy to infinity. My actions are my testament. I got a lot of questioning. How Ben Frank was on 100 but was never president. You broke, you go to jail. You got money, you get right out. They lock you up for drugs, but they got coke in the White House.